Today is an extremely important day in the Senate. Today we are taking a vote to either stand with victims and victims' families, or we're taking a vote to reappoint personnel to the Board of Pardon and Paroles who have crafted a policy which has allowed 44 vicious murderers to have their sentences commuted over the last year. I want to thank Governor Lamont for making the bold decision to listen to victims' families and to stress and to remove the chairman from his position on the Board of Pardon and Paroles. That is a first step. However, that person remains on the Board of Pardon and Paroles, so it is not a full step. In our opinion, that person and the two others that have done the pre-screenings for these commutations and the final hearings on the commutations should also be removed from the Board of Pardon and Paroles. The Board of Pardon and Paroles took it upon themselves in the cloak of darkness under COVID to create a policy that now allows vicious murderers, rapists, those who have committed multiple murders, to have their sentences commuted by decades. Not by 1 or 2 years, but decades. And the worst part about this policy, again, a policy that was crafted in the dark by a group of lay people without any legislative input, any input from prosecutors, any input from defense attorneys, and zero input from victims. This policy requires that if you apply for a commutation and you are denied, which is rare, that you get to come back in 3 years. So imagine this. Imagine having a child or a loved one who is viciously murdered, and you have to go through the trauma of losing that loved one, the trauma of enduring a trial, or the trauma of negotiating a plea deal. And you finally are getting your life back together. And yet the person who committed those crimes has the ability and nothing else to do but come forward every 3 years, and you are re-victimized, having to relive that every 3 years. That is in this policy. So what we're asking today is to do the right thing and have the Senate follow what some in the House did, which is to vote no on those that are going to be confirmed or reconfirmed today on the Board of Pardon and Paroles. We are also asking that the governor halt all commutations until the policy that we have been promised will be revised is revised. We believe that policy should come forward and have a full public hearing with input from the public, because there is safety and risk associated with allowing individuals who have committed the most heinous crime of taking someone else's life back into the public. We also think that the legislature, the Judiciary Committee, should have input. And of course, the victims, before any policy is set. We have to remember that the Board of Pardon and Paroles are our conduits. They are our fellow citizens, but they are making decisions that change the trajectory of our judicial system with no input from this body or anybody other than the board themselves. So I want to thank you for being here today. I'm now going to introduce Steve Harding, Senator Steve Harding, my fellow senator, who sits on the Judiciary Committee.
So thank you so much, Senator. I want to thank Senator Summers, the victims' families, and the victims for playing an important advocacy role in this process. Unfortunately, since I've been in the legislature, we've seen this continued move to take out the voices of the victims and their families as it relates to crime in this state. And what we've seen is too heavily a focus on the defendant and too little a focus on the victims and their families. And this is really the apex today in what we're seeing with the boards of pardons and paroles, and the sentences that are being commuted, the individuals that are being released, and what the families are forced to endure. It is about time our state focus on the victims and focus on the victims' families and do something here that is right, not only in interest of the public safety for the state of Connecticut, but do something that's right in the interest of the families and the victims, and support them and craft policy that will bring their voice to the conversation, bring a much stronger voice than we currently have, and also bring the voice of public safety to the conversation. It is my honor to introduce Audrey, whose daughter unfortunately lost her life in a homicide in 2002, something that she has been forced to endure during this entire time. And it is an honor to be here with her today and to introduce her. So thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you everyone for being here on this really beautiful day. And I'm here first to thank Governor Lamont for taking prompt action in removing Mr. Giles and setting the course of the BOPP in a new and more rational direction. I want to thank Heather Summers for her hard work in this issue, bringing the actions of the Board of Pardons and Paroles to light for all the other legislators. I am going to speak on behalf of my family. I am going to speak on other families that have reached out to me in numbers I can't even begin to tell you. However, there were some families that wanted to be here this morning on behalf of Linda Binnecade, the B&B murders, Connie Pollock, Attorney John Biller, on respect of his brother and his co-partner lawyer, Bruce Horowitz, and again, so many others. It would take up too much time to tell you. There's an army behind me, and we're not going away. I was here a few weeks ago when we spoke about the importance and the critical nature of this policy, that I would really like to have it halted and have a new set of eyes, ears, and hearts that would be directed on making things right and just. I never want to wish what we are going through on any of you. Until it hits home, until you know that your heart has been ripped out and you're never going to be the same. Healing has an ing for a reason. It's ongoing. It transforms you. For 20 years, I have been going through a period of healing and transforming, learning how to be redirected in my life, until a few months ago we learned that Jonathan Carney, inmate 300990, has applied for a commutation, when we as a family, through a grueling and reluctant acceptance of a plea bargain with our prosecutors, our attorneys, and the judges, who I hold in the highest respect and love because they did the right thing, we accepted a 42-year contract, ironclad, knowing and trusting that this system is going to work for us. Well, guess what? We were wrong. All I'm asking is for a level of diplomacy and compromise and understanding with respect. This is not political. This is just, and this is what has to be to keep us all safe and do what's right. Please really consider halting the commutations, having that pause as Governor Lamont has suggested before, really rethinking and having all parties involved, including victims' families, where we can sit down and have what Lamont has respectfully suggested, a roundtable discussion where all voices matter. You know, the round table where nobody is in power, we all have an equal voice, kind of like that, where we can all have a voice, all be heard, and treat each other with respect, do what's right, and set the tone for keeping us safe and not having to put any family through what we're going through. And I'm going to trust in my heart that the right thing will be done. And I want to thank you everyone this morning for listening to me. And it's nothing that you're prepared for in life. However, it's something that I am destined to do. And I'd like to introduce a family member of 45 years whose our families are intertwined. You know how they say you can't pick your family members, but you can pick your friends and they become your family? Jan Kritzman has been a part of our family, a voice, a supporter, who I can't imagine my life without. Her family has been with us, and she has a voice today, and I'd like to introduce Jan Kritzman. Thank you.
Good late morning. My name is Jan Kritzman. I live in Newington, very near the Carlson family. We are not blood family, but we're better than that. We are true family for 45 years. When Audrey and Bruce Carlson and Leslie Carlson's sister, Elizabeth, right here, was murdered in cold blood by her stalking ex-boyfriend, who broke into the house and pumped her full of bullets was probably the most earth-shattering day of my life, because they are my family also. He took a plea deal of 42 years with no parole after about a year or more of hearings in New Britain Superior Court. And I attended each and every one of them. And when the end came and he took a plea of 42 years with no parole, we thought, well, he's going to be behind bars. Fini kaput, that's it. Well, in January, mid-January, we got a notification that he was wanted to have a pretrial hearing to have his sentence shaved. He had served 21 years, but he had 21 years more to go. Sentencing commutation, he has a plea deal. We were in shock. But we got together 1,000 emails, and his request for sentencing commutation was denied. But he can come back in 3 years. And I can't imagine living through what we lived through back in January every 3 years, because he can come back with the way the policy is right now. We need a change in the policy. We need a drastic change. We need it to be an upheaval of this policy. And the governor's naming of a new chairman of the BOPP is definitely a start, but we've got a long way to go. Thank you for your time, and thank you.
So I want to thank you all for being here. In closing, I think you can see that it's clear what we're asking: halting all commutations until a policy can be revised that has a thorough and open forum, that the legislative branch has an opportunity to weigh in, the victims, regular citizens, prosecutors, defense attorneys, so that it is in the light, that we all understand what the policy is for the Board of Pardon and Paroles. We also believe it should go to the Judiciary Committee for their approval and then off to Regs review. This is too important with the public safety and the trajectory of our judicial system to not have a light be shined on it. So with that, we are happy to answer any questions.